What do you remember about the time you were at home while you were sick?
Before I knew I had the surgical sponge, I was just really tired. I didn't feel good. I didn't want to eat. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Well, how good do you expect to feel? You just had a baby." So the second time I went back to the doctor, I saw the midwife because I initially had a midwife. I didn't expect to have a C section. And the midwife said, if you're not feeling well, maybe you have a breast infection. So I went to a lactation specialist, and they said that everything was fine. I didn't have a breast infection, but I just got progressively worse. So you actually had um, your first baby appointment, and I brought you. I went to the doctor earlier in the day. Your grandfather, Papa, brought me because I just couldn't drive. I was just so exhausted. And the doctor said, "Well, let's go get some blood tests and all, and we'll check to see how you're doing." So I took you afterward to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician said, undress the baby. So I undressed you, and I just kind of put my head down on the little changing table.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor came in and said, "My gosh, you don't look very good." I said, "I don't feel very well." She said, "Well, let me get you some water." And so I sat down, and I just was miserable. And then that night is when the surgical sponge popped. After I came home, it was really hard because, of course, I had you, but because I had the atelectasis and my lungs stuck together, I had to have in home oxygen. I had to have visiting nurses 3 times a day. I still had the open wound that was seeping out the infection. So it was very difficult to try to be a mom and a wife and have all these problems. So
Yep.
it was definitely a change.
Okay. Were there any short-term effects from the surgical sponge?
Well, as I mentioned before, the short term effects were my temperature was up to 104.7. They packed me in ice
Mm-hmm.
to keep my temperature down. My lungs stuck together. Um, I had the open wound. I ended up getting fibroids, which was part of maybe I guess you'd say a long lasting symptom of this. But I mean, I was just really sick. I needed oxygen. My O2 sats were down around 73, which they should be around 96 to 100. So, it was a lot of adjustment, a lot of short-term impacts. But I mean, I was pretty healthy, and after a couple months, I bounced back and had a new baby boy.
Yep. And was having this problem worth the outcome? Why or why not?
Well, I think it's worth the outcome because I got you, and I wouldn't trade you for anything. Um, I mean, it's a good lessons learned. Um, at first they told us that we would never have children again because of all the problems that I had, and you know that I'd always have compromised lungs and stuff like that. But we ended up having your sister, and life is pretty good. So I think it's well worth all the grief, all the hassle, all the pain, all the suffering. So,
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Mom. I appreciate it.
love you.